Welcome to Sales and Marketing Talk Show. Today we are talking about creating a content marketing strategy, and I have my colleague Audrey Agahan joining me. Welcome, Audrey. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for having me. This is so fun that we get to do this together.
Yeah, exactly. And I think you are probably second colleague of mine to join this show. So great to hear your thoughts on content marketing strategy. I've seen some documents that you have created for our clients, so there's for sure a lot to learn. But hey, number one question that I always love to ask for my guest is the question why. So why do you think that companies should be investing time and money to create a content marketing strategy rather than just going and publishing different kind of blogs and articles?
Yeah, I think that many companies feel the pressure of getting visibility to their website. So they think that they just need to produce a ton of content. But in my opinion, bad and unintentional content is worse than no content at all. Because poor content is how your brand will be seen, and unintentional content will bring you the wrong people. And as with any marketing activity, your content should be aligned with your business goals, whether that's boosting brand awareness, generating leads, or increasing retention. So if you don't have a strategy in place, that means you won't have any goals or a way to measure your efforts. You won't know what success looks like. And worst of all, you'll be wasting like a ton of time, money, and resources. So a content marketing strategy helps you understand the role that content plays in achieving your larger business goals, and it acts like as a steering document for your day-to-day efforts. It helps you decide what to do, when to do it, and how to do it. And more importantly, a content marketing strategy can get you more closely aligned with the rest of your company, from marketing to sales to product. And closer alignment means that you'll have more advocates for content marketing when you're all working towards the same goals.
Yeah, exactly. I agree on that one. Maybe one thing to ask is like, of course, if you are already like established company, you have a lot of resources, then I think it's easier to invest in creating a content marketing strategy.
Mhm.
But if you are like a starting company, you haven't done that much, then people are always talking that you should rather start doing things, testing out what is working, rather than like building a huge strategy. So how would you like find the balance between there?
Yeah, like I don't think you need to have this like huge strategy if you're just, well, I mean, it's always good to have a very like informed strategy, but if you're just starting out and you don't really know where to start, it should be at least some sort of data informed. So I always start with doing like customer research, and really getting to know your customers, and building who, your ICP is, what we call the ideal customer profile. So if you can do some like customer research, that can really guide like what kind of content you should be working on. And also, of course, talking to all of your internal stakeholders, like product and sales, like what are they hearing from their customers? Like that really can kind of guide what sort of content you should be producing.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that that is the main point that even though you should do some strategy work, it doesn't always mean that you should be doing like a lot of work for that one super big document, but rather figuring out the most important parts. And I think the ICP, ideal customer profile, is really something to start with. How do you know who are your ideal customers? Like, how should you like identify those?
Yeah, so usually what we like when we're working with like new clients, we usually have like an ICP workshop. So we first find out like who all the internal stakeholders think that the ICP is, and then we will validate that by actually doing some customer interviews. And how they choose their ICP is like who is the one with the generating the most revenue, who are the customers that have the most customer lifetime value, who are the customers that like really understand your product, they don't ask for a discount, they start kind of promoting your product within their own company and get other people on board, so they really understand the value of your product and you don't have to really sell to them. So those are usually like who your ICP should be and is. And so to validate that, we will, like start interviewing who those customers are. And I think if you don't do your own customer research, like traditionally and typically marketers, I think, don't talk directly to their customers. They usually rely on some like passed on information from sales or customer success or product development. And if you've ever played the game telephone, then you know how distorted that information gets by the time it reaches you. So the foundation of a content marketing strategy really starts with honing in on who your ideal customer is. And the best way to do that is to talk to your customers. And so I think many people are intimidated by the idea of customer research. They think it's this super intense and expensive thing. But I typically start with only interviewing around 5 customers. So that's like 5 hours of my day. And already with that, you can start to see some patterns. But I would say like around 10 interviews will give you a good data set. And the customer interviews will help me understand like who the target audience is, how to speak their language, where they hang out, why they buy, why they don't buy, and what job it is they're trying to get done with your product or service. So these interviews will give me ideas for topics to write about, what sort of vocabulary to use, and even like where to distribute the content. And it kind of takes away the guessing game. And oftentimes, like I use direct quotes for creating like website copies or ad copies. And this makes creating content so much easier. And best of all, you can like typically use these interviews for customer case studies or testimonials.
Yeah, that sounds like a smart thing to do. And I could dig a little bit deeper on the like talking to your clients, because I think now there might be people who are working in marketing and they're like, okay, I call to my clients and ask them like, why did you buy from us, or what separated our product from the others? But I find it like every now and then kind of hard to get the like right answer from the client. So what do you think? What are like the best of the best questions that you are asking in the customer interviews to really find out the best of the best there?
Yeah, so I usually have 3 stages of questions that I like to ask. So in the first stage, it's like what were they doing before they bought your product or service? So like what was their process like? What were their pains? Like what were they struggling with? What were the alternatives that they looked into? And what were kind of like their requirements for like this new solution that they were choosing, and sort of what triggered them to start looking for a solution. So those are kind of like the before like sort of questions. And then we go into like buying process questions. So, we'll ask them like, what was the buying process like? Who was involved? Like what kind of things were you worried about? What things could have helped you during the sales process? So all these sort of questions digging into like what the buying process is like, because oftentimes there can be things that you can learn from there and help to improve. And then finally, like the last set of questions will be like impact questions. So how are they using the product? Who's using the product? How has this product helped them reach their certain goals? How has this product, like what certain features are really useful to them, and what could be improved? So these are kind of the 3 stages of questions. And then I usually finish off with a side like personal agenda about marketing. So I'll ask like where do you typically like look for information when you're stuck on something, and where are you hanging out? What influencers are you listening to? Like, so then those are people and channels that we can start to like dig into to see if those are good places for us to like distribute our content.
Great ideas there. Can you share like some actionable example that you have done, for example, in the last couple of months when doing customer interviews for clients? Of course, I understand that you said that, hey, we can do better copy on the website, but like something super like actionable that you have done based on the customer research that you have done for some company.
Yeah, actually, so I have this one client that's a project management tool, sort of like Trello and Jira, but they've really focused on like software engineers and product developers. So I interviewed 5 of their customers, and they were a mix of product product managers and software engineers. And like I was able to build a customer story from one of the interviews, and the client was just like so in love with it because basically the client had compared their product to Trello, Jira, and I think it was a GitHub, and to have that like comparison of their products against the direct competitors from a software engineer, like saying like what are the shortcomings and what are the strengths of this product, was very, very like valuable for whoever else is considering like looking for a project management tool. So that like I basically copy and pasted the quotes of their quotes and their comparison into the customer story. So I didn't even have to write like that section of it. It was like really, really valuable and not so much writing on my part.
Yeah, sounds good. Sounds good. But hey, then if we think about like the starting of the project is of course start from the ICP, understanding the ideal customers. But then if company already have a lot of content on their website, what do you typically look on those ones? Like is it that like data that you are looking for which is converting the best at the moment, or what are the things that you are looking at on the site?
Yeah, so another huge part of building a content marketing strategy is understanding like what content you already have. So I like to do a content audit, and if you have a blog specifically, then a blog audit.
Yeah.
So the content audits give you a clear understanding of your existing content and how to best leverage it, see what's hurting you and what's like kind of missing. And the first thing I look at in a content audit is the performance. So I'll look at things like search volume, clicks, keyword position, click-through rate. So understanding the performance of your content will help you identify opportunities for optimization, content gaps, and kind of painfully also like what content you should get rid of. And I know a lot of clients like they don't want to get rid of content, but the truth is there are some pieces of content that just like aren't generating like any traffic or any value. So you should kind of unpublish those. Another important element of a content audit is identifying the target keyword for each landing page or blog post. So if you have several pages trying to rank for the same keyword, well, then you're hurting yourself. And you'll hear this being called like keyword cannibalization. So in these cases, you should check if you're optimizing for the right keyword. And maybe you can merge some content, and then you should think about what you should unpublish. And one other major element is getting an inventory of your content stage mix. So it's good to have a healthy mix of content for what we call the 4 content stages, which are awareness, consideration, decision, and delight, which I know you're very familiar with, Samali. I often find that clients are really only focused on, like, they're either very product focused, where the content is based heavily on decision and delight stage content for people who, it's just basically all content around their product. But there's no like awareness content for brand awareness and brand building, or it's the opposite. So besides guiding your content strategy, content audits help you discover quick wins. So things like content pruning, cross-linking, historical optimization, and just being able to update existing blogs. So it's much cheaper to update like what you already have than to, start from scratch.
Yeah, some very valuable information then. A lot of new things for me as well, even though there was some things that I'm familiar with already. But hey, now we have done our back work. So we have audited the website, we have understood who are our ideal customers, we have talked to them. So then we could hop on to like really creating the content marketing strategy. And if we think about like different things there, I think we could start off with the goals of the content marketing strategy, because I think it's always good to have the goals in mind when like doing things. So what do you think? What are like typical goals that you should be setting for a content marketing strategy, and how to decide what they should be?
Yeah, so a content like marketing strategy all comes down to setting goals that support your business. I can't stress enough how important marketing and sales alignment is, because You can only set meaningful KPIs and metrics to measure success in content marketing once you know what your overall business goals are. So you've got to speak the language of your different stakeholders. They're probably not going to care about the number of gated ebook downloads that you have. So you have to tie your content marketing like to growth. So you'll want to first identify what your growth bottlenecks are and how content can help. For example, if your business is struggling with lead generation, then you'll want to focus on, new contacts or the number of free trial signups and new customers. So here you'll focus on brand awareness and consideration stage content. On the other hand, if increasing retention is your main goal, then you'll measure your churn rate. So to help, you can create valuable content that educates your customers on your product, inform them of new or useful features. You can also take a look at the impact of like your lead nurturing workflows.
Yeah, sounds good. And I think that really comes to understanding the growth bottlenecks that you have inside your company. So not the goal shouldn't be the same in like every company, or even like related to same things. It should be from the like growth bottlenecks. I think for like many companies, like even like understanding where the real growth bottlenecks are might be like hard sometimes. How would you like address that one? What do you think? What is like the best way to figure out where the growth bottleneck is?
Yeah, I mean, it's just kind of looking at different things like, are you getting enough leads? Like, are you having a lot of churn? So seeing where that is, where the issue is it like if if a lot of people already know who you are, for instance, if you're like Trello, brand awareness is not your growth bottleneck. Like everyone knows who you are. So you're going to focus, more somewhere where you are having issues. Is it because the customers are leaving, or is it because like, or maybe it's the conversion rate? People are not, going from trial to paid. So there's something there that you need to work on. So it's just looking into kind of the numbers and where that is.
Yeah, exactly. But hey, then after goals, we typically discuss that you should be going after what are the like main themes that you should be talking about. What are like the main messages that companies should choose? So what do you think? How many main messages there like can be? Is it like typical challenge that we want to be known for like 10 different things and we want to be talking about all of these things to all these people rather than like really narrowing down the themes that they want to talk about?
Yeah, I mean, this is a very common problem with branding and with messaging. There are a lot of very horizontal products out there, so they have a hard time kind of narrowing down their focus and their messaging. So again, this boils down to who your ICP is. So your themes and main messages should speak clearly to your ideal customer. Call them out even if you can. So if you're a project management software for engineers, like put that in your like hero image of your homepage, like, and tell them how your product or service like solves their biggest pain points. So I mean, you can always add your additional USPs and everything, further in your like website under a product page or whatever it is. But I think really clearly saying like who your ideal customer is and what it is you're trying to solve for them, instead of having a very broad message that is for everyone, is much more, will resonate much more. So yeah, I think it's okay to have a broad message when you're universally known. But for other companies who are still trying to build brand awareness and credibility, then you really need to focus on the most impactful audiences who can help you scale and choose the messaging that really like resonates with them.
Yeah, exactly. And then after you have like succeed there, then maybe to scale up to other ICPs, to other groups as well.
Yep. So it's like first start with one and do a really good job with that, and then you can definitely scale to others. That's exactly what we do with our clients.
Yeah, exactly. But then, hey, after themes, after main messages, it comes to like different content formats and concepts. What do you think? What are the most typical ones? I think for many companies, they are just publishing a lot of blogs and maybe some customer stories. But what are like the typical content formats that you typically recommend clients to do, and how to figure out what are the right formats for your company?
Yeah, there's a lot of different content formats and frameworks too. So like I always like to kind of use frameworks when I'm creating content. So if you're starting a blog, one of my favorite frameworks is Pain Point SEO, which helps you prioritize content ideas around like really high intent keywords over high volume keywords with the goal of driving conversions. So and a good content format is creating like pillar pages. And a pillar page is a page that basically presents a comprehensive yet general overview of content on your website. You often see these as like the ultimate guide to B2B SaaS marketing. So these pages will cover every aspect of a particular topic without going into too much detail. But then that page provides an opportunity to glean more detailed information about a topic through various internal linking to your other like blog posts or cluster contents. And adding pillar pages to your blogging arsenal means making a focused effort to link your content together in helpful ways. It eliminates redundant content and it organizes your blog around the most important topics. But what you really care about is pillar pages makes it easy for Google to determine what your site's all about and then rank it. In terms of other formats outside of like blog posts, like I find customer stories very, very valuable because, you know, if you have a prospect coming to visit your site and they want to know like if someone has the same sort of problem and there's the sort of like organizational format, then those are super, super helpful. But there's so many different formats now with like these lives, these podcasts, webinars. So I think it depends on like who your audience is. Like again, like where they're hanging out. Like creating video is also very, very like effective because a lot of people are visual learners and don't want to take the time to read, you know, a 2,000 word blog pillar page. So there are definitely like different formats that you can play with. And I think that's actually becoming really, really important in the content marketer world to be able to do like multimedia like content and having like being able to do different types of content rather than just like blogging.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's all about like different kind of formats, but then at the same time, like different kind of channels that you are using. So I think for brands, if I think that I see some brand like only on LinkedIn, of course, if they have a lot of good content, then for sure I might be a potential client at some point. I might be turning in paid client at some point. But if I see that same brand everywhere, I listen to their podcast, I follow them, people are on Instagram, check out reels over there. So I think it's good to be in multiple channels as well. You earlier mentioned that like when doing the ideal customer profile, interviewing clients, that you like to ask like what are the places that they hang out. So does like picking up the right channels for your marketing come back to that?
Yeah, like, I mean, I hate to sound like a broken record, but yeah, it's about your ideal customers and where they hang out in the digital world. So I'm going to bring up this like project management SaaS company again that's targeted for software engineers. In my research, I found that most of them don't typically hang out on LinkedIn or Instagram. Instead, Twitter and Reddit were better channels for them. And then I also found out some of them have their own personal like email lists and blogs. So these are really like really valuable and insightful like things for us to learn, because then we could kind of prod and find out who are these Twitter people that they're following, are there partnerships that we can do. So yeah, super, super valuable information that you can only get, you know, from the customers.
Yeah.
Yeah, and another easy way to distribute content is by like what you said, like using different content formats. So repurposing a single piece of content. There are so many ways to do this, like syndicating a blog post on Medium or making it a LinkedIn article. You can also turn a piece of content into a webinar or a podcast or an infographic or even a LinkedIn live chat like this.
Yeah, exactly. Uh, when it comes to content and, for example, blog post or so, I think for many people there is like the understanding that I should be doing a blog like for example, let's say every week we should like produce one new blog or one new piece of content or whatever. But what do you think? How you should be determining like in which volumes you are producing new content in like different channels, different places?
Yeah, so this is a very popular struggle. So if you have a company blog, the answer you don't want to hear is it depends. The frequency of blog posts depends on what's best for your company and what your goals are. So if your goal is to drive organic traffic to your website, then yes, posting frequently is important. If brand awareness and building thought leadership is more of the game, then providing like really valuable information is more crucial here. So if you're a lone ranger marketer at your company, then posting every day or even every week can feel really and be really impossible. But you don't have to be discouraged. That's why building a content marketing strategy is really crucial. This will help you prioritize and decide what will move the needle the most. At Advance B2B, we focus on creating more like comprehensive and evergreen content so we can rank for the most impactful keywords. So we don't even have a regular cadence of blogging. It's not that we don't want to, we just kind of don't have the resources to, since we don't have like a dedicated marketing person for it. But we do try to be much more intentional about it. So if you have a good evergreen post, these can often take a while to gain traction. But if you continue to optimize it and make the information super valuable, then you can like continue to rank even like years later. I mean, we have a couple of blog posts that are, I think, ranking on the first page of Google. So, I mean, but that took a while to build. But yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And I think if people want to try that one out, for example, if you Google B2B SaaS content marketing strategy, I think we come up there quite in a good place for sure. Then lastly, on the content marketing strategy, tone of voice. I think that is something that, first of all, I would like to understand a bit more. Why do you think that's like super important? What happens if you don't have your tone of voice somehow like written down and decided that, hey, this is the way we are going to talk?
Yeah, I mean, I run into that a lot where clients don't have like a documented tone of voice. So, and then there are like 5 different people writing for the blog and they just sound like all totally different people. So tone of voice can be really difficult to nail because we tend to want to write for ourselves and in our own voice and style. So your company's tone of voice is like uber important to define. And so you want to make sure it resonates with your customers and you want to capture and keep. So that's why, again, talking directly to your customers can guide developing your company's brand and tone of voice. Your brand is essentially how your audience perceives you, and your voice is the representation of your brand personality. So if you don't take the time to define your brand, then your audience will form an impression of you based on whatever they come across about your company. So in addition to listening to your company, your customers, you should also obviously involve your stakeholders in your company when defining your brand and voice. And you can do this by like starting by asking your questions like, if your brand were a person, how would you describe him or her? If your brand was an emoji, like what would it be? How do you want people to feel when they visit your site and read your content? And then you can like try to find some benchmarks, like what brand voices do you admire and what do you dislike and why? And that can kind of help you formulate what your tone of voice is. And keeping a consistent tone with everything you do is paramount to building trust with your audience.
Yeah. How about like if you think about like your role and you are doing content for multiple different clients with like multiple different tone of voices, do you find it like hard when as you said that you typically want to write as yourself and then you have like 3 different companies, 3 different tone of voices? How do you change like it inside your head that, hey, now I'm Audrey with this kind of tone of voice and now I'm Audrey with this kind of tone of voice?
Yeah, I mean, like that's why these customer interviews like are like really valuable, because then I bring those voices back into my head and like, okay, how would these customers talk? And then I have to put that like that lens on and change things up. So at first it's hard if you don't know the customers and you don't know the product. That's really hard. So you really have to spend this like foundational time to understand like your product, your business, your goals, your customers, like everything. And then it's not so hard once, like, now that I've been working, after working with clients for like a month or 2 or 3, then I really understand what their tone of voice is, and it's not so hard.
Yeah, exactly. Now we have like done a lot of strategy work, but then from that to like actionable things to do. So typically, like in the end of creating a content marketing strategy, you hopefully have a like backlog of different ideas that you should be starting to do things with. So question maybe there. First of all, when you have a long list of ideas, hey, we should be doing a blog post about these ones, we should be doing reference stories on these ones, we should be starting a podcast series, we should be starting to do LinkedIn lives. What do you think? What is like the best way of prioritizing that list of content? What should we do first?
Yeah, I mean, I really like to use like the pie prioritization framework. So you can kind of score like the impact and the ease, and then from that score you'll kind of take like an average. And I like to score these, and I also like to have the client score these because we have two different viewpoints about things, and then you kind of take an average. And I even use that like sort of prioritization framework when I'm doing like a content audit. So I can figure out like, how I should like prioritize optimizing all of this existing like content. But yeah, the customer research does give you a lot of good content ideas. But as a side note, I don't stop doing customer research at like the start of building a strategy. I continue to do this because the markets and products like tend to evolve. And that's like brings me to another side tangent. Your content strategy is not a static document, so it should continue to align with your business goals and transform as you get more learnings like from your data as well. And then like working closely with sales, customer success, and product development and other departments, I also get a lot of ideas from them, and I often interview and ghostwrite on behalf of them who are like the internal subject matter experts. And then another way to get ideas is to use like SEO tools like SEMrush, Moz, like or Ahrefs. They've got some really great tools that like identify content topic ideas, content gaps, backlink opportunities, like stuff like that.
Yeah, exactly. And I think like the cooperation between sales and marketing is also like super important when thinking about like different content ideas. For example, if we think what we are doing, I'm like always shouting out the ideas that I'm getting from the customers. Hey, these are the subjects that they are talking about right now. We should be writing about these. So I think that is something that every salesperson should be doing as well.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we get so many ideas from you because you're the ones like always talking to the prospects and customers. So like that also helps us prioritize things. If it's something that you repeatedly keep hearing, like of course we're going to prioritize that as well.
Yeah, exactly. But hey, now to the last part of this interview, I have a question for my previous guest to you, and then you have the chance to ask a question from my next guest. And on the last episode, I have Kyle Poyer joining me. We talk about pricing and packaging for B2B SaaS companies. And Kyle's question for you is that what is the role of company brand versus personal brand in content marketing strategy? And kind of how this should be taken in consideration when making the content marketing strategy, because Kyle thought the same way that I do, and I think that is something that many other people do as well, is the fact that people want to read more from people rather than from companies. So what do you think of this?
Yeah, this is a great question because this is something we invest heavily in this at Advance B2B. This LinkedIn Live is proof of that, since we're colleagues and we're both doing this voluntarily, not part of some plan that we actually have. So this is definitely something that I think needs to be supported and led by the leadership of a company, which can be probably the toughest part. But your people are your most valuable asset. And I think allowing them to showcase their expertise not only gives a company like free marketing, but it gives personal fulfillment to your employees, and it gives them the space to do their best work. I think the hard truth is that employees will leave regardless, but if you stunt their growth and keep them a secret, they'll probably be more likely to leave if they feel personal development and recognition are not valued. And this kind of reminds me of the content marketing debate around keeping a piece of valuable content gated when the world should see it. And yeah, I think a way for you to build this into your strategy is to make this easier for people to share, we will I'll pre-write some content that people can share with social shares and different variations of it. So if people are kind of timid to write, they might not think they're a good writer, I'll kind of give some ideas and templates that they can use, so they can use it to post on their LinkedIn or whatever sort of social media that they're using. So this is a way for content to help, but the content marketing team can really lead this too, and bring this to the leadership. And if the content and marketing team have a really close relationship with the leadership, and they can show sort of the business value of doing this, that's also an easy way for you to kind of get them on board with this. And so I know you agree with me here, Semily, since you came up with this awesome idea to have a weekly LinkedIn topic where you encourage all of us to post on our personal LinkedIn, but you make it easy because you give us a weekly topic. So I think that's really good too.
Yeah, and I think one thing that is super interesting that we earlier talked about frequency of the posting on your company blog or so on. And for example, one interesting thing is that should be their part in the content marketing strategy, where there is for example, everyone working in a company should post at least once a week on LinkedIn. Of course, I personally think that posting on LinkedIn should be for everyone to decide if they are doing it or not. But then at the same time, I think companies really should be supporting that as much as they can, explaining why that is super important, because I think there's a lot of folks out there who don't understand the benefits of posting their, for example, weekly.
Yeah, exactly. I think even I know some of our colleagues who at first didn't want to post on their LinkedIn Live because they just value their privacy so much. So I could see that being an issue with people. And you're right, we don't need to force people to do this. You want people to want to do this, so that it's something that kind of happens organically and not forced.
Yeah, exactly. But hey, then to your question, to my next guest, I have Rand Fiskin joining me next time. What do you think? What I should be asking from Rand?
Yeah, first of all, really stoked about this next guest. I mean, he started SparkToro, and he formerly was part of Moz. So two go-to tools for content marketers. So my question is, once you've nailed down who your ICP is, how can you use SparkToro to identify who your potential customers versus your potential amplifiers are? Because I know he speaks about this difference. So I would find that really interesting, how to do that on his new tool that he's passionate about.
Great question for sure. I must a little bit investigate the question to understand it myself, but I'm sure Rand will understand that one, and I'm hopefully as well soon. But hey, thank you so much for joining me, Audrey. Thank you for everyone listening this episode about content marketing strategy. And if you liked the episode, please feel free to share it with your colleagues and friends, and have a great week, everyone. Cool. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Uncle Sam.